The Digital Photography Cafe show is brought to you by Focus Pyramid, the autofocus lens calibration tool for your camera, and by Mosaic, your Lightroom photos automatically on every device and backed up, and by Shootproof, the easy way to proof and sell your photos online.
Welcome to the Digital Photography Cafe show. Join hosts Trevor Curran and Joseph Christina as they chat about the art and business of photography.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. This is episode 106. I'm Joseph Christina here with my co-host Trevor Curran. On last week's episode, we addressed a listener comment about the Canon EOS 60D and took a deeper look at Adobe Creative Cloud's pricing structure to help you decide if it's right for your photography business. If you haven't watched last week's show, I encourage you to do so. You can find it at our website, digitalphotographycafe.com, in iTunes, listen with the popular Stitcher, TuneIn, and Xbox Music apps, or watch in HD on TiVo.
So Joe, we're back. How's it going, my friend?
We are back. How's everything? I'm back, but I'm kind of jacked up like usual. It's summertime in Florida, and the kids are sick, and but we're gonna push through. How are you doing over there?
Yeah, doing good. Things are going well. We've got the rain, the springtime rain going on up here, but that's to be expected. My grass is like a foot long. I haven't been able to mow it in a week. It's just growing like crazy.
Yeah, and I have a lot more grass than you do down here, and I never.
You got year-round grass down there, man.
Yeah, it slows down during the winter, but during the summer, it just grows like weed because basically it is weed. It's not really grass. It's stuff in Florida here. So anyways, we got a good show for you guys this week. A lot of kind of like interesting topics that we're going to kind of delve into. But the first one, of course, is what?
Yeah, well, you know what? Let's talk about the Adobe conversation from last week. We got quite a bit of feedback this week about that through Twitter.
Kind of nuts, right?
Yeah, we really have. And honestly, it seems like the audience, from what I can tell, is rather split. Yep. There's a good portion of them that feel that Creative Cloud is a good move and is right for them. And then there's another big portion that says, no, I'm not going to switch. I'm going to hold out with CS6 as long as I can, and then maybe try one of the free products like GIMP or something like that.
Yeah, we figured that's the way it was kind of going to play out. I guess if we did a poll on it, I'm going to venture to say it'll probably be pretty close to 50-50. Yeah. I think that it would probably kind of meander towards not paying the continuous fee, but that's just my
well, and I think that's directly proportionate to the size of the studio. Again, if you've got a big studio, multiple photographers, or even if it's just you, but you're just swamped, you're busy all the time, you've got money coming in, then money really doesn't become an issue, and it probably makes sense just to stay in the Adobe camp. But the smaller studio where jobs are fewer and farther between, money's a little tighter, there people are going to be looking for alternatives.
Just not going to be able to do it.
Yeah,
absolutely. So you see WordPress ends up turning what? 10 years old here?
Yeah, May 27th.
27th,
yeah.
10 years. Can you imagine?
I know. I know.
And that's like your lifeblood because you're like a WordPress nut.
Yeah, well, that's what I do. I mean, it's the number one CMS on the market, which is great. I mean, that's really why I went in the WordPress camp as opposed to Joomla or something else like that. I mean, the community is just really big and
huge.
Yeah. In fact, actually this week, I've been spending a lot of time developing WordPress training tutorials for my clients. Right. Part of the service that I offer to them is training. Many of the clients, they've never used WordPress before. They're coming from static HTML sites that just really aren't working for their needs anymore. So they're coming to me to revamp their site, make it responsive, make it mobile friendly. But now they need to learn the whole back end system. So I'm putting together.
And it's definitely not very, it's easy and it's not easy. If you want to delve deep into WordPress, it gets very complicated. And that's when you need someone like Trevor to kind of go through it and to teach you or to do it for you. But, for the basic stuff, to be able to, throw in a blog entry, add a photo here, there, and elsewhere, maybe make a page or a post.
Right.
You could do it pretty easily. But yeah, it's by far the best. And, I joke with you being the WordPress nut, but I mean, if no one knows, it's Trevor's the guy that always says, you know what, guess what, Joe? There's a plugin for that. And
you want that functionality? Yeah, there's a plugin for that.
There's a plugin for that. So, the number of plugins for WordPress is, I mean, I don't even know. It's got to be tens of thousands, maybe. I don't know. There's just a ton.
Well, that's really what my sales approach is with my clients, is that WordPress, when all the configuration is done, when the design and the development is done and the functionality is done on my end, WordPress really is an easy system for the client to go in and update, to add the blog post, to add pages, to add, pages to navigation. I mean, that's the whole point of WordPress. And that's really what I want to do. I don't want to nickel and dime my clients and try and charge them for every blog post and things like that. It doesn't benefit anyone in the long run. I would rather teach them how to use it and then have them come to me for the big upgrades, the big functionality additions and things. I mean, because that's where I'm going to make my money anyway.
Yeah. And, you say that, and it's so important. And, as photographers, we do this all the time. We come up with this great blog or this great site and put up all these pictures, in like 3 weeks, in this big, just a barrage of photos and comment and all this stuff and tagging. And, we're doing our due diligence, right? We're really in there. We're making it happen. Then all of a sudden what happens is we just start slowing down.
Yep.
And then not updating it for like a week, then not updating it for a month. And then all of a sudden you look at your site and the site's a year old and the projects are so outdated, you're not getting business. Yeah. And that's the beauty of WordPress though, is that you have that ability to continuously update and do it quick and easily. So that's why we've always been a proponent of WordPress, regardless of what you do or what I do. Just it's an easy platform. So we always suggest for photographers, just do a WordPress site. It's so easy, and just like you always say, there's a plugin for that. There's a plugin for just about anything that you can possibly delve into. Want for your photography site.
That's right.
So anyways,
I would say too, I just want to let everybody know that if you are interested in WordPress training, let me know. I've put these tutorials together, and I'm not going to throw them out there to the general public if there isn't an interest. But if you guys are interested and you want to see them, let me know.
Yeah. So more about what you've been doing, I guess, this week. You went over to, Streaming Media East? That trade show. So that must have been a ton of fun, right?
Yeah, that was fun. Going into New York City is always fun. I live in northern New Jersey, so I'm not in the city every day, but I'm close enough that I can go in pretty much whenever I want. And so I went in for the Streaming Media East trade show. It was at the Hilton in Midtown, a beautiful hotel, really nice. It's not a huge trade show. I would say there was probably maybe, 50, 60 vendors there or something. I mean, it wasn't huge. Certainly not like, Photo Plus Expo or WPPI, nothing like that. But it was good because part of what I do in my business is I provide live streaming solutions. And it kind of is funny how it came up. I mean, I had a client who I was doing web work for, and part of their needs was a live streaming solution for, what their business is, for what they do. So this was probably almost 2 years ago. I started doing a ton of research, learned all kinds of things about streaming media and the best way to do it, the best content delivery networks and things, and put together a solution that they've been using for almost 2 years now, and it really works well. But we're kind of at the point where we're thinking about updating things, maybe cutting some expenses, making some improvements. So my client flew out from Colorado, and he had some other meetings while he was out here anyway. So we met in the city, we went to the show together, and spent a lot of time talking to the different vendors there about their offerings.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's really nice about doing the smaller trade shows is you have more of an intimate feel. Let's say you have your 50 vendors there. You can literally go to the 50 vendors and sit, and talk with them for a little bit. Whereas, with a Photo Plus or WPPI or
it's just
even
so
like a Photokina or something like that, where it's so huge and there's so much going on.
Yeah,
it's very, very hard to do that. You're basically getting cards and and contacting them to have
After
a
the
sit
fact,
down with
yeah.
them after the fact.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this is kind of nice. That's really cool. So I'm sure there's a lot of cool things. You shared one that I thought was fascinating that the photographers would probably enjoy.
Yeah.
And that's that chroma-key solution, right? That ring light.
Yeah, this thing was
Super
really
cool.
cool. I mean, I've played with doing chroma keying before, green screens and stuff for some other video projects that I was working with, and it's a little challenging to do it and to do it right. You know, to do it.
So if let's just kind of back up for a second. If someone doesn't know what chroma keying is, or the whole gist of it, if you take a look at your weather report at night and you see the guy standing there and he's like pointing at, well, he's looking at a screen on the side. What's behind him is basically either blue screen or green screen. That's
Right.
chroma screen, and that image is being put in post production. For them, it's being put in on the fly. Through the live feed, but that's being put in after the fact. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about chroma key. So this is a solution that allows you to do this chroma key. And one of the problems always is, the crux of it is you always end up with some type, and you've probably seen this with like the smaller programs that you guys watch, maybe a newscast or whatnot. You'll see a guy have literally a cast of either green or blue, like around his hair, especially if
Right.
they're blonde. If their hair is light, you'll see like blue hair or whatever.
Yeah.
That is that chroma, that I guess that fading onto or falling onto the subject. And this product that you're talking about here actually fixes that, right?
It really does. Yeah, this is really awesome. I mean, to do a good green screen, to do a good chroma key, your subject needs to be a good, let's say, 10 feet from the background. You need to flood that background, that seamless paper, let's say, or that paint that you've got on the wall. You need to flood that with light so it's nice and bright.
And it needs to be flooded equally.
Equally is
right.
key. Because you can't have the subject's shadow fall in the background, because you'll see that. And you don't want the luminance of the green reflecting onto the subject, like Joe just said. So you need to have that distance. Well, that means you have to have multiple sets of lights. You've got to have a set of lights lighting your background. You've got to have a set of lights for your subject. Well, this technology is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So what it is, it's a ring light that goes around the lens of your camera. And in that ring, you have a series of green LEDs and a series of blue LEDs. It comes with a little controller, so you can control the intensity, and you can control whether you want blue or green, blue screen or green screen. Then what's behind you is actually a reflective material. So this light shines onto that material and it reflects back into the camera, very intense, green or blue colors, whatever you're using.
So this reflective material, guys, if you just think about it as this, if you've seen anyone working on the side of the road or at night, you'll see, let's say, a motorcycle rider or whatever, and you'll see like a beam, it's so bright,
Right.
of reflective material on their garment, or maybe on a police car down the side. This is the type of intensity that this reflective material produces using this blue or green light. It's very, very cool.
It's
and that's where the cost comes in, right?
Well, that's where the cost comes in. Yeah, the technology's not cheap. I mean, the ring light itself is probably comparable to other ring lights or flashes or anything, and you can get that for like $550, $560 from B&H. The expensive thing is the reflective material. You're not buying a piece of seamless paper here. You're not buying some, fabric that you're hanging from a rod. I mean, this is expensive stuff. So a 7-foot collapsible screen costs you like $1,000 at B&H. So
yeah. So now, if you got, let's say, the full roll of it, let's say, to do a nice sweep,
Yeah,
let's say,
yeah.
you're talking thousands and thousands of
bucks.
dollars of
Yeah.
material. But the thing is, okay, so why in the heck are we talking about this?
Yeah.
It's kind of neat for anyone out there that's doing, for example, any type of senior work, any type of in-studio portrait work, or even outside studio, where, for years we used to either have to go to a location that we liked the backdrop, or later on start doing chroma key, start doing like either a green or a blue backdrop,
Yep.
then replace it after the fact with something else. Very cool for like senior portraits, right? To put them wherever you want them. Maybe it's like a senior and it's a football guy. You put him in the middle of a field and there's someone. But anyways, this provides you that luxury to replace the backgrounds without buying a ton of backgrounds with whatever background you want. Number
digital
one,
backgrounds.
but no digital backgrounds. But number two, it does it without having that problem of cast, without having that blue hair or green hair or any of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you buy once this, and then you go and buy backdrops,
Or you make your own.
Or make your own. Absolutely, even better.
Yeah, no, this technology is really cool because the beauty is you only need to be about, the subject only needs to be about a meter, 3+ feet from this background.
Yeah.
And the camera, they recommend like maybe 3 meters from the subject. So
you're dealing with a small amount of space, 9 feet, 10 feet, let's say total.
Exactly.
Not that, big a deal.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Very cool. So,
I like it.
so anyway, so that trip into the city, that was fun. Getting in there is always a challenge with New York, New Jersey traffic. And, normally the way I go in is I drop off in Weehawken there. I take the ferry across and I pop out right by the Javits Convention Center, right where we do Photo Plus Expo.
Right.
Well, the Hilton was uptown. It was uptown a little further.
Like
it was
20
up by
blocks.
Yeah, it was like 20 blocks up. It was over a few Aves and up a few blocks, but it was like 20 blocks total. So, of course, I had to get a cab. Well, I got there, got off the boat, flew into a cab, and sat in traffic for about 20 minutes to get 20 blocks.
That's New York.
But whatever, I made it there. We got there. We had a good day. So I'm going to leave the hotel, and I need to get a cab back down to the ferry. There is a line for the cabs at the hotel that is like a mile long. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm going to be here for literally an hour or an hour and a half waiting just to get a cab.
Right.
So I see these kids riding around on these like bicycle cabs.
Right.
All right. So picture this. I'll try and describe it. It looks like a tricycle. It's got 3 wheels, and in the back, where a basket might be on a regular, adult-sized tricycle, there is a bench seat. And it's got a canopy that comes over the top for shade and for rain and stuff. So this kid comes up to me and he says, oh,
hey, buddy, you need a lift.
Yeah, you need a lift. And I said, well, how far are you going? And he's like, oh, well, where do you need to go? I told him. He's like, no problem.
You should have told him Jersey.
Yeah, I know. I need to go to the Jersey side. Yeah.
The guy would end up being 50 pounds.
I know. So he's like, oh, no problem. I can take you down there. So I've never ridden in one of these things before. I've seen them around New York a whole bunch of times, and I said, yeah, it'd be fun to try it. So I figured, what the heck, I don't want to wait for a cab. So I hop in the back of this thing. He takes off, and we are going nuts, man. We're like weaving in and out of cars. We're on the shoulder. We're practically on the freaking sidewalk. The traffic. The traffic's coming up. The traffic is stopped. There's gaps between cars, and he's literally weaving left and right across the road. And to keep the thing moving so he doesn't have to come to a fully stop and then have to try and pedal again from start. Oh my God. It's like the rickshaws, right? That you see in like Chinatown where the guys got you in the back, but he's running, but here he's on a bike instead of running. We have that exact same thing down here in Miami. They have those bikes, they put you on the back, and it's like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. It really was.
It's just nuts. Oh. But, and these guys do it all day long, and I don't even know how they do it.
No. If you're watching the video, we'll throw some video. I recorded a short segment on my iPhone when I wasn't hanging on for dear life. We finally hit an open road, and I was like, yes, now I can get some video. I mean, before
those guys, they get up to speed, too. They're like moving. It's not like a single gear type of thing.
No, this has multiple gears. I mean, he was cruising along. So anyway, that was an adventure. Awesome. If you're in New York City, I don't know if I'd recommend it or not, but
just do it. That's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
So, talking about going to New York is you come down here, I go up there. Sometimes we'll go over to the MGM Grand over in Vegas for a show, or we're constantly moving around. Talking about that, and it's summertime, so you guys are going to be probably doing the summertime vacation. Yep. And for either an amateur or a pro-am or a pro photographer, are probably one of the biggest things that we think about when we leave is like, what camera do we bring with us, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah,
that's got to be like the dilemma.
Yeah,
right?
The dilemma, travel photography, right? What do you take with you? Do you bring your DSLR? Do you bring a point and shoot? What type of point and shoot? You want something that has, you're a photographer, right? You want something that has controls, not some, $100 point and shoot that gives you nothing.
Exactly. That's where the Canon, the G line came into play. G10, G11, G12. What is it? G15 now? I don't know. They're gonna be
something like
G20
that.
soon.
Yeah,
but that did really well because
it
it gave you a lot of that control that you were talking about.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, a lot of pro photographers were using the G9, the G10 as like their walk-around camera.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. So, just want to give you some food for thought, guys. When you go on your vacation, there's a couple of things to think about. Number one, the airline. How are you going to travel with this thing? Security.
Yep.
If you have a DSLR, chances are with a couple lenses, time you're done, you're at $2,000 pretty quickly. With your gear, battery pack, this, that, and the other thing, at least $2,000. So you're going to have to see about putting an alarm on it, put alarm on your bag, put alarm someplace so that, it doesn't, let's say decide to walk away without you.
Yeah.
And that does happen a lot in airports, a lot.
Sure. Or you're carrying it on with you and putting it in your overhead or under your seat or something.
Right. And then you have to decide which, like what we do here, which pack to bring. Yep. Because there's one pack that we have that is the exact size that is allowed to be brought on and stuffed underneath your seat. So that's the one that we bring. But there's a lot of things that go into bringing a DSLR. So, for me, after doing this for a couple of years, I've kind of decided that the DSLR is just not for me, not the way to go. And a couple of things that, kind of give you guys food for thought is, so many times I'm out on vacation, I'm with the family, and let's say we went to Disney or something, and you're wandering around, maybe it starts raining. Okay, now you're sticking your camera away. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Then you're wandering around and you want to go on a ride. Well, does someone want to stay off the ride, or do you want to all go on the ride?
Right.
Well, if you're all going on the ride, right, where's your camera going to go?
Yeah, where are you going to put your camera?
If you have like this backpack. Yeah, and even if you don't have a backpack and you just have a DSLR hanging around your neck that's 7 pounds, is that fun? Yeah. And what kind of ride can you go on? So that's something to think about.
Yep.
I do not leave my camera sitting like in a stroller or something and then just hope when I get back it's going to be there. So that's a major issue. Then, of course, you have to think about heat. These sensors, they heat up. If you leave it out in the sun for any length of time, it's not going to work anyways.
Yep.
Our 7Ds, they heat up and they go, we get a little, thermometer come up on the screen all the time when we're shooting video because we beat them.
Yeah.
We really give them a workout. So, there is a finite amount of heat that these cameras can take. So that's something to think about. And then the other thing, which is to me, very important, is the pictures that I always miss when I have a DSLR are the ones that I cannot have that camera with me at that specific moment. So maybe it's in the sand, maybe it's near water, maybe it's inside the ocean, maybe it's during a rainstorm, maybe it's hiking around and, I can't go drop $2,000, $3,000 and then just, pick up the pieces. These are issues that, you can kind of think about before you leave, home with that DSLR, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, me personally, I like a higher end point and shoot. Right. Honestly, really what I'm kind of leaning towards now, Pentax and the other companies too, but Pentax in particular stands out right now. They have a WG line of point and shoot cameras, but they're ruggedized cameras. And they're actually coated with rubber on the outside. They're like waterproof, shockproof, dust resistant, cold resistance, crush proof. I mean,
and then they go underwater. I mean, I think they go like 12 meters, 10, I don't know.
Yeah.
It goes underwater a bunch of feet where you're not going to be able to go down anyways unless you're, diving with a BC or something. So if you're snorkeling, you can use this. I mean, it's just, you see news crews use those type of cameras now, and they'll just throw them into a scene. Down here, we just had like this big flooding that happened near me. Yep. And so with the news crew, what do? You got the guy with the big monster, HD video camera. Then you got his buddy there, probably his helper, that sticks one of those cameras right on the edge of the street. And as the cars come by, is like splashing the camera, and you hear the bubbling of the water going down into the drain on the street. I mean, it gives like a really dynamic and dramatic feel to the situation that you wouldn't have been able to get with one of these, $30,000 HD cameras that they're shooting the story.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's where like the GoPros come in. I love the GoPro. I think it's an awesome camera, and it captures stuff that there's absolutely no way for us to capture any other way unless we had, this is obviously video, but unless we had some type of camera that's like that, that's small and rugged. I like that Pentax. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, it comes with a carabiner on a strap. So you can just clip it to your backpack or your belt loop or something, and it's going to get banged around. It's going to get smashed into things, but who cares? I mean, that's what it's made for. So yeah, that's the way I roll.
Yeah, so exactly. So I guess it's the bottom line comes down to is when do you pull out the point and shoot, and when do you pull out the DSLR? Are you trying to make artwork, or are you trying to just capture memories?
Right.
And that's really the biggest, that's the deciding factor. And the problem that I have with it is when you have the DSLR and you're out there with the family, sometimes you miss those memories. And, you're basically capturing art. You're capturing things that are more stagnant, more steady, and more in a situation that cannot be harmful to your camera. So, the best camera is always the one that works for the situation. And for me, if you're going to be not necessarily doing travel photography for iStock or for doing an art portfolio, and you're really trying to capture those memories, I would just, look for a really nice, rugged point and shoot that will do the job.
Yeah, I agree. And if you have one, if you've used one, there's one model in particular that you like, let us know so we can share it with people. I'm sure, 'tis the season, and a lot of people are going to be looking to get, these little rugged point and shoots. So
yeah, absolutely. So all right, Trev, before we go any further, let's go ahead and take a quick break to hear from a couple of our sponsors.
Are you frustrated with slightly out of focus images when you know your autofocus spot was dead on? It's simply not your fault. From manufacturer to manufacturer, and even lens copy to lens copy, there are slight variances to the exact spot where light is being focused onto the sensor. Finally, there's a product that allows you to compensate for those variances and make sharper images immediately. Focus Pyramid, the autofocus lens calibration tool, is an absolute must for every photographer. If you want to make the sharpest images possible, then you need to take control over your camera's focusing system. With the Focus Pyramid, you can calibrate all of your lenses on your lunch break. The Focus Pyramid makes lens calibration quick and easy at an affordable price. So give your lenses a new lease on life and take your photography to the next level. Head over to focuspyramid.com/DPC and get an additional 10% off just for being a show listener. From phones, tablets, laptops, and PCs, these days photographers use multiple internet-connected devices.
Have you ever wished you could view your Lightroom images, folders, collections, and metadata from any of these devices? Now you can.
Mosaic Storage Systems has created Mosaic View, an application that gives you access to your images without exporting or using a publishing service.
Mosaic also offers Mosaic Archive, which directly integrates with Lightroom as a powerful cloud backup solution.
Mosaic gives photographers access to all of their images from anywhere on virtually any device.
Try Mosaic View today for free and access 2,000 of your most recent images.
As a Digital Photography Cafe viewer, Mosaic is offering a 20% discount off any of their premium plans.
Go to mosaicarchive.com and use coupon code DPCafe at checkout.
Mosaic. Lightroom, anywhere, any device, secure, backed up. As photographers, we're always trying to increase sales and profits after every event.
We shoot an event and have hundreds or even thousands of images that just sit on our hard drives.
Perhaps a better workflow would increase sales by getting those valuable images in front of the client.
That's where ShootProof comes in. At shootproof.com, you can have an online gallery for all of your clients' proofing needs.
ShootProof helps increase profits while building your brand and securing your photos without charging commission fees on sales.
ShootProof galleries display your photos beautifully while helping to streamline your workflow and automate more of your business through their intuitive studio control panel.
Once approved, photos can be directly fulfilled through ShootProof's various professional lab partners or fulfilled by you.
All ShootProof plans have the same feature set. You simply choose the number of client photos stored, decide what products to sell, and the price.
Try ShootProof today by taking advantage of their free 30-day trial offer.
As a Digital Photography Cafe viewer, ShootProof is offering a 20% discount off any of their premium plans by using promo code DPC20 at checkout.
ShootProof. Upload, share, sell, print.
So, all right, guys, we are back. So, every week, we're constantly wandering around trying to find great topics for you guys. And, during my wanders this week, I found an essay, not even an article. It's definitely an essay by this author. His name is Clayton Cubitt. And he is basically, he started out as a painter. He does film. He's a photographer, a professional photographer. And he had some insight in this essay as far as, where have we been, where have we come, and where we're going type of thing with photography. And, I kind of want to talk about it a little bit because it's very, very interesting. And we're definitely going to put a URL in there for you guys to go and read the original script on it, the original essay, because it's definitely worth taking a look at and reading. But, so he basically talks about the, decisive moment, that moment in time that we click the camera, right?
Yep.
So, Cartier Bresson, he's the guy that basically came up with this. Well, he kind of stole it from back in the 17th century. But anyways, he came up with the idea. So Clayton basically writes, he says, Cartier Bresson believes that the photographer is like a hunter, going forth into the wild, armed with quick reflexes and a finely honed eye, which is true, finely honed eye, in search for that moment that most distills the time before him. And yes, that is exactly what Bresson stated. That's exactly what he felt. He felt that we went out looking for moments in time to capture that would distill or to say or convey the emotion that we see in front of us, right?
Right.
This is the way he looked at it. So, so he continues and goes on, and he actually quotes something that that Bresson says. And Bresson says, he says, we photographers deal in things which are continually vanishing, which is the truth, right? Yeah. As moments go, once they're gone, they're gone. And when they have vanished, there is no contrivance on earth which can make them come back. We cannot develop and print a memory, which is absolutely true.
That's right.
Bresson is true here, right? We cannot, how many times as photographers we're at a situation, especially like at events, and we're watching something happen, we have the camera ready, and something happens that split second that we missed. And we're like, oh my God,
sure,
I missed it. And in your mind, or in your mind's eye, you're playing it back, and you're hoping, as you should be, that it's going to happen again. Maybe that kiss, or maybe that look, or maybe that touch, that moment, that special time that you missed. And it's like, damn, I missed it. Yeah. And you know it. And as photographers and as professionals that do this for a long period of time, we know when we missed something, as well as when we know that we got something. Yeah. We take that one picture, like, I got it. I know I got it. As long as my focus is good, I got it.
Right.
But it's the same way that we feel, right? When we miss it.
And if you ever try to recreate that moment, it just never feels the same. No. That spontaneity is really what captures the life of a lot of the images that we create.
Exactly. That's one of the reasons why when I do a lot of portrait work, I do not do a lot of posing. And there's a lot of photographers, they'll read manuscripts on posing, and they'll have 5, 10,000 million trillion poses that they have in their mind that they come up, that they use. But just like you said, there's an interaction, there's a feel, a mood that you cannot get by trying to convey that thought to the person who is not, let's say, a trained actor. It just doesn't happen. So
that's it.
I'm more of a watcher and feeler, but anyways. So he continues and he says, photography is not like a painting. He says there is a creative fraction of a second when you take that picture. So he's coming back and he's saying, listen, Bresson is saying, we are creatives, but we create on moments. We create in seconds. We're not continuously creating, right? It says your eye must see a composition or an expression of its life, and you must know with intuition when to click the camera. So that is the moment that the photographer is, quote unquote, creative. If you miss it, It's basically gone forever. This is what he states. So, I guess we know now what Brenson says. Most people that have read Brenson, have seen his work, they understand him. Now, Clayton here, he comes back and he's kind of writing this essay, which I found was fascinating, basically as a point in contradiction, let's say, to Brenson. And, he starts out by saying, listen, Brenson is wrong. Look at, for example, Google, Google goggles. Now it's Google Glass, 360 degree HD content recording, all that video and content coming in.
Right.
That decisive moment is no longer a decisive moment.
No, you have all the moments.
Exactly. So what he calls it, instead of a decisive moment, he calls it now a constant moment.
Right.
And this is basically his thesis, and this is what he talks about. He references Google, and he references, for example, the drone cameras that are out there that, hover aloft, taking, 2 gigapixel images for weeks on end, and, are able to, the military are able to go in there and actually look at 6-inch squares for 5 miles at a time. Just sick amounts of data.
Yep.
He speaks on that. He speaks also on the iPhone, right? The iPhone, well, they come up with about $10 for these camera sensors now, right? I think something like that.
Yeah.
That's about what they cost. Moore's Law has them at about 10 cents in a couple of years for the, for these sensors, and they do a good job, right?
Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, we know that these cameras in the iPhones do a great job. And yeah, so kind of what his thought is here is that, the cost of the equipment is coming down so much, and you could potentially put a whole barrage, a whole array of these cameras together, all at different angles, all maybe focusing on different subjects within a group, such as a wedding, and just let them run and just let them roll and capture all of the moments basically in video form, and pull your images from all of this data that you're collecting.
Yeah. So, he says, so now, so imagine if you have, a ton of these sensors, let's call them, networked together.
Yep.
Right. And you're capturing, like you said, this entire feed, let's call it a feed now, of that specific moment. So, he says, well, how about look at a street photographer? They can go and, put a whole load of these sensors all over the street and now capture, the street as it is and be able to now pick and choose. Or the photojournalist, they can deploy him inside of a neighborhood, or, possibly maybe a war photographer,
sure,
right? He can do the same thing and quote unquote capture the true story that's going on, and not, let's say, the story that is depicted by the photographer. Because bear in mind, a photojournalist takes photos based on their impression of what's going on.
Yes.
We continuously, when we click the shutter, we're continuously making that, let's say, assumption or pushing our vision onto that film, regardless if we know it or not. It just happens. We tell a story through those pictures, and if we are inclined to tell a story with a certain bend, it's going to be bent in that direction based on the pictures, regardless. So, he speaks on that, on, basically being able to capture the true quote unquote story, right?
Yeah, right. And you know what, honestly though, but that's why people hire us as photographers, as photojournalists, for example, because they like our style. They like the message that we're conveying through our imagery. And, that's where I think that this idea of the constant moment kind of falls short, because just from a production standpoint, I mean, how could you ever go through all of that data and pull out these moments from it?
Right.
I mean, if you're talking about an hour-long session with 4 cameras, I mean, yeah, you could do it. I mean, you could take 4 hours to go through 4 basically video feeds after you've spent potentially 4 hours importing all of that data into a computer, and sit there and go through frame by frame by frame, looking for those moments and pull out your stills. But it doesn't scale. I mean, you can't do a 3-hour wedding, with 5, 6, 10, 20 cameras all around. I mean, it's just is not practical. It's just not going to work. And I think that's where, in theory, it sounds really awesome. I mean, it sounds like a really interesting idea. And, and again, but I think this is more theoretical than it will ever be practical.
Yeah.
Until some type of
I'm with you
technology
on
comes
this.
in.
I'm definitely with you on this because, just from doing video for as long as we have, I know what goes into the back end of trying to make something out of 5, 6, 7 camera feeds.
Sure.
Putting all these camera feeds, and just like you said, if you take 1 hour with 5 cameras, you got 5 hours worth of coverage, you got 5 hours of import. Even if you could do a double down, you do 2.5 hours of import. And then you have a minimum of 5 hours to go through these things. Now, of course, we scrub through them and we do stuff like that. But with 5 cameras on a screen and you're looking at all 5 at the same time, you can kind of get your mind around it a little bit. But once you start doing a multitude of cameras, you're going to need a crew of people that are going through deciding what is this constant moment to this decisive moment.
Sure.
Which are those frames that need to be captured, and then from what angle are we going to capture it to tell the story best on how we want it told? So yeah, I think that in theory, I think it's a great theory. Maybe even technically, it will be eventually possible. Based on cost as well, for memory as far as and even storage for the gigs and gigs and gigs that would be created by this HD video.
Sure.
Might eventually become possible, but when it all boils down to it, he says something which is very interesting. He says capturing how many of these billions of decisive moments do we miss by not employing this this constant moment type of technology,
right?
Which is it's a fair point because it is true, but that's the idea of why we are professionals. We are here to decide what are those moments, and we have to have that intuition to know before it happens that it will happen.
Right, and we even have to know how to direct a shoot or to direct the interaction, to direct the what's going on to ultimately create the event that we're hoping to capture, by providing art direction, by telling the subject, why don't you walk over this way, knowing that as they're walking over that way, they're going to pass in front of this bank of flowers or something like that that's going to create this image. So you're not really posing them, you're not telling them exactly what to do, but you're guiding them in the direction in hopes to capture one of these great moments.
And that is the difference between an amateur and a professional, is just simply knowing.
Yeah, that's right. It's experience.
Experience. When something is going to happen, or to lead or to direct it to happen, so to speak.
Yep.
So you know what? I think we need to get out of here. But I thought it was a very interesting topic.
It's very cool. Yeah.
The idea that I kind of leave you guys with is for me, with all the technology and everything that we speak about on the show, and all of the new cameras that come out and all the new software things that come out, the whole technology as a whole, the bottom line is, for me, for all of the foreseeable future, as far as I can see, software will never replace the wetware between our ears.
Yep.
It just simply won't.
That's right.
Right.
I agree.
Guess, kind of leave it at that. I think it was very interesting. You guys need to go and, if you can, take a look, read through his essay. I thought it was very poignant. It had wonderful points. He did a great job of footnoting everything, just like anyone writing a good essay would. So everything is referenced back to where he found out where the data and where he kind of put it all together. So very, very good stuff. Once again, his name was Clayton Cubitt, and we'll go ahead and put the URL in the show notes as well as this way you guys can go take a look.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a good read. It's definitely something to think about. And I agree with you that, I think for the foreseeable future, people will always be hiring based on your creativity, based on your eye and the art that you create, rather than the tools and the software and the mechanics that you're using. I mean, I think that always comes down to it. I mean, I tell young people all the time when they talk about getting into design and photography and everything else, and I always tell them, practice your design, practice your, develop your creative eye. That's really where your future is going to lie, because you have millions of software technicians out there that know how to use Photoshop, that know how to use Illustrator, that can, run circles around you in software. That's fine. But they may not have that visual eye. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what we're selling. We're selling our creativity.
Yeah, and that's absolutely the case. And, to quote Brenson, he said, people think far too much about techniques and not about seeing.
Yep.
And that is absolutely the case.
Yes, I agree.
So,
all right, man.
All right, Trev.
We are done.
We are out of here, right?
Yeah. So if our listeners and viewers want to connect with you outside of the show, what's the best way to reach you?
You can find me on Twitter, and that's at Joseph Christina, and that's Christina without an H.
Great. And you can connect with me on Twitter. It's at Trevor Current.
Awesome. Well, that is it. That is the end. Can you believe it?
Oh, another long
So anyways, I know it's been a long one. We're trying to go shorter.
Yeah.
But anyways, guys, if you guys want to get the show notes for this episode, you can get them by visiting digitalphotographycafe.com/106. And don't forget, if you enjoy the show, please give us a 5-star review in iTunes. Help spread the word through Twitter. And now you can give us a call through our new comment line by visiting digitalphotographycafe.com/love. So keep your questions and comments coming, and we will see you next week.
You've been watching the Digital Photography Cafe Show with Trevor Current and Joseph Christina. Be sure to subscribe to the show for free in iTunes or through RSS. You can also listen on Stitcher and TuneIn Radio and watch in HD on TiVo. Visit digitalphotographycafe.com for show notes and to connect with your hosts.